Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in this beautiful city. We're all gathered here to share information, exchange ideas, and best practices. And I will spend the next 25 to 30 minutes discussing basically what I've dedicated the majority of the last 4 or 5 years to, and that is the Cyprus Citizenship by Investment Program. I'm a big fan of the program. Please stop me along the way if there are questions, if I need to provide some clarity. I know there's a Q&A at the end as well, so we'll try to be as clear and concise as possible. First of all, a few words about who we are. We are a law firm, Chetcuti, Cauchi. It's a Maltese name for those of you that don't know us. Our founding partners are Maltese, based in Malta, and it was about 3 years ago now, our firm, Savan Associates in Cyprus, merged our immigration practice and formed a joint venture with Chetcuti, Cauchi in Malta, and we now offer all citizenship and residency services in Europe through this joint venture. So we're a law firm, approaching 200 or so people now. Malta being our head office with about 150 people. We're up to 45 or so now in Cyprus, and then a few of us that are in other jurisdictions or spend the majority of our time traveling to places like this. In Malta, we were the first accredited and approved agent. We submitted the first passport application and received the first approval. In Cyprus, we were very early in the game. We saw the opportunity to expand what we had begun in Malta into the Cypriot market when that program was introduced. And I'm not certain exactly where we rank in terms of applications submitted, but I reckon we're in the top 3 in terms of volume submitted in Cyprus. We're lawyers. Clients sign engagement letters with us. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients. And along with that comes the confidentiality and the confidential treatment of information that you get with dealing with a law firm. We are beyond citizenship and residency experts. While we've got the largest citizenship and residency team, legal team in Europe, our history is one of tax advice and corporate structuring, and as such, we provide a very holistic service to our clients. We view citizenship and residency as part of a broader private client service offering, and we spend a lot of time with our clients advising on tax and helping optimize taxation in their global wealth management needs. The Cyprus program has been around for many years. In fact, the law, Citizenship by Investment Program law, originally dates back to 2002. There have been variations of the program that have been introduced over the last few years, most notably in 2013 after Cyprus had experienced some financial issues and a banking situation that resulted in some liquidity needs and a very immediate need for foreign direct investment. The law was revised in 2013 to make the program more attractive, and then again most recently in 2016 when the program was revised again, essentially eliminating the government bond option, as the government no longer needed this program to recapitalize itself, and directing the foreign investment to areas that would provide a more immediate impact to the Cypriot economy. Why we like this program? I myself am not a lawyer, I'm a chartered accountant, so I approach investments from an accountant point of view, somewhat risk-averse approach, but suffice it to say I don't like wasting a dollar. And so the concept of donating to governments to acquire anything is one that doesn't sit well with me. And so I believe the real value of this program, when you compare it to most of the other programs that are similar to it, from a pure citizenship, direct passport, is the fact that it's an investment-based program. There are no donations to the government, unlike Malta, unlike some of the Caribbean destinations. And we tell clients, and we spend a lot of hours, a lot of days structuring investments that produce wonderful returns. We're now essentially 4 years, approaching 5 years from when the program was originally altered or introduced into its current state, and we're having clients exit the €2 million or €2.5 million investments that they made, and we're having very successful exits. We're having clients earn not just rental amounts and rental guarantees, but they're selling real estate, they're exiting bonds, and they're exiting with good returns. So for me, the pure investment nature of the program is probably the most appealing aspect. Certainly there are other benefits. The fact that there's essentially no residency requirement, although the law in its most current revision requires a Cypriot applicant to hold a permanent residency permit for 6 months. Most of the clients can essentially meet this requirement with a 5 or 6 hour visit. Many of them arriving in the morning, going for biometrics at noon, and then heading to the airport in the evening. So not much of a residency requirement. It is certainly the fastest route to obtaining a European passport. That's not disputable. In fact, Malta being second is probably 7 or 8 month period longer than Cyprus to obtain the passport. And this last point here, which often isn't always raised or noted or given enough attention, is the fact that the program is very simple. It is a simple application process. In fact, you can't be compared to many other programs. The application, the forms themselves are quite simple. In fact, we hand fill them. We grab like the old days, pen and pencil, and fill them in. And there are no requirements for medical testing. It's not a program that cares to spend 2 or 3 years sifting through client records and bank accounts and income tax returns to prove the source of wealth. The program, it's not that it doesn't care about source of wealth, and it's not that or wealth declarations and source of funds. It's that the program was designed to be quick. The program was designed to bring foreign direct investment into the country quickly and put it to work at a time when these funds were desperately needed. And anyone that knows and has worked with programs that have intense source of funds requirements, you know that you get into a process that takes months, many hours, if not many weeks and years before things are proven and the funds get put to work. Couple of advantages other than what I just spoke about a few minutes ago is that in its current, the revisions that happened at the end of 2016 aligned the program much better with European requirements. So we can safely say that the program is EU approved right now. That doesn't mean the programs are going to be around forever. It doesn't mean there isn't going to be changes coming. There is certainly continued pressure from the European Union. There's information As everyone knows, there's a bit of an anti-immigration sentiment that's making its way through Europe and various countries and has been focal points of elections in recent months. There is pressure, there's no doubt about it. The program will continue to evolve. Would anticipate another round of changes potentially coming as early as February or March of the new year, following the next Cypriot election. But for now, the program is EU approved, and what does that mean? You get an EU passport very quickly, and you have the benefits of being an EU citizen. And I don't believe that there's a document that allows for a higher degree of freedom anywhere in the world. You've got access to 28 EU member countries. You can travel, you can reside, you can invest, and I don't know that there's a document that can be acquired through investment that is more powerful than that. 159 countries visa-free. For those of us that travel a lot and don't care to disclose where we've traveled to the last 10 years, as well as our Facebook and LinkedIn passwords and everything else that comes around with heightened levels of due diligence these days. It's got a wonderful healthcare and education. Obviously, Europe does, but Cyprus, if there's one thing you know growing up as a child to Cypriot parents, it's all about education. They may not drive the nicest cars, they may not have the nicest houses, but they certainly send their kids to the best schools. And education and healthcare is certainly a priority of the country, and it shows in the facilities, the infrastructure, and the institutions. The last point here is an important one, is that this citizenship is something that our clients and applicants of this program acquire for life. It is many times I tell my clients that they may not see the real value of what they've done. It's their children, it's their children's children. It's when the kids get to that age where they can attend university and all of a sudden they've got some of the top schools in the world. It's Iranian clients, for example, that can't move money because of sanctions or because of discriminations from banks in the Western world. That come to Cyprus immediately after getting their passport, and a couple of days later they've got bank accounts and are able to put their funds most of them have worked really hard for in places that are secure. It's access to the US and avoiding these travel bans and some of this instability that's come with this Trump administration. It's a generational thing, and I think that it's something that while the investment can be high at times, we have to be very clear to identify all the advantages. The Cyprus passport is not a travel document. There's much, much more to it than that. So how do we qualify? What is the eligibility? And I'll go through some details here in a little bit. I talked about earlier the 6-month residency requirement that can be satisfied in a few hours. When the process is complete, and I'm going to go through a timeline here shortly, the applicant will submit a permanent residency permit. This was an EU requirement that came about during the last round of changes, and it's essentially the trigger that allows all the other EU member states to conduct their due diligence and provide their opinions. So there's a 30-day window following when the residency permit is submitted where other EU member states have the time and the option to voice an objection to the residency permit. And so that 6-month requirement was really put in place to fulfill the EU requirement for residency. Clean police record goes without say that these programs are not designed to allow individuals that have criminal problems to avoid or evade them. So police clearance and a clean police clearance from both the country of residence and the country of origin is a must. Not even look at an application without a clean police clearance. The next point here is a residence. We've already talked about obtaining citizenship and spending as little as a few hours. on the island. Well, this third point here is where the government of Cyprus says, fine, we don't want people making investments, getting the passports and disappearing. This residence requirement says as long as you hold the citizenship, the main applicant, you will need to have a residence for 500,000. This thing has been challenged. It's created legal complexities. It's created constitutional problems because there's nothing in the Cypriot constitution that says there can be two classes of citizens, one with a house and one without a house. And so things happen over time. We've had a client recently that had to sell for various reasons, had to sell their residence and is now being challenged by the authorities. And this is a matter that's going to make its way through the court system in Cyprus and likely be changes to the program as a result of the outcome. But for now, in its current state, the 500,000 residences for life. We'll go through some details regarding the 500,000 in a second, but just wanted to highlight that. In addition, there's an investment of 1.5 to 2 million. Of course, it can be higher, but 1.5 to 2 million that must enter the Cypriot economy, be put to risk, and remain for a period of 3 years and 1 day. We have the minimum visit that we discussed earlier to provide biometrics. There are currently no embassies outside of Cyprus that have biometric equipment for permanent residency purposes. For passports, that's different. And of course, one plus the other, plus the other, plus the other equals a European passport, and we talked about the benefits earlier. So who can apply? We've got the main applicant being 18 years of age or older. The spouse, certainly, in its last revision of the program, the parents can now be added to the application of only the main applicant. So it's very important now when we're deciding who the main applicant is going to be, that we assign whoever's parents we wish to add. If we wish to add the wife's parents, then we will make the wife the main applicant. If it's the husband's parents, then we cannot add both. We've tried. Dependent children under the age of 18, as well as dependent children over the age of 18 and up to the age of 27, which is 27 years old is quite liberal. And we've done a number of applications with many children, 25, 26, 27, as long as they're in school and meet certain criteria. And rather than go through them all in detail here, because we'll end up taking about an hour and a half, if there's more specific questions, I'll be around. Grab me and we'll go through them. Last point here is all nationalities welcome. And we see this. It's not that we want the program to be focused on nationalities where there are issues or assist individuals from countries that are classified as rogue nations obtain European citizenship, but we're open to good people that are willing to invest in our economy and meet the criteria from every country. It is not a discriminatory program at all. We'll go through this slide in about 2 seconds. Government fees are very low, 2,000 euros when we submit the application, 5,000 at the time the naturalization certificate is issued. The government takes responsibility to conduct its own due diligence. There isn't massive due diligence fees. It's not outsourced. It's done by the government itself. And so we're looking at 7,000 to 7,500 in government fees per applicant. And again, we can go through this in more detail. I think that's the level of detail required for this presentation. The 500,000 permanent residents 500,000 does not include VAT, and this is important because VAT in Cyprus on new real estate can be as high as 19%. And so the 500,000 can become 600,000 in investment relatively quickly. There are different rates of VAT. The 5%, of course, is applicable to personal use. If it's going to be your permanent residence, but there are limitations towards what you can do with that property. If you apply for the 5% VAT, you cannot rent the property. If you sell the property, you must pay the VAT on a proportionate basis back to the government. And so if it's a property you have no interest in using because you won't visit Cyprus, then the 19% is what we'll be paying. Unless we buy resale, we buy something that is VAT exempt. The property is to be held indefinitely for the life of the main applicant. That's what the law says today. Letting is allowed subject to the VAT that I discussed a moment ago. Yields are relatively strong in Cyprus right now. Residential real estate is hovering around 4% on long-term basis. On a short-term basis, we have clients that are earning 8%, 9% higher. May be sold but must be replaced. We sent a formal letter to the government a couple of days ago asking them how many days they would give us. They sent us a reply that said 5 days. So if you sell the house, you have 5 days to replace it. So there better be a plan. There better be a plan before you sell as to what you're going to buy. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem. We've written them a formal letter back telling them that 5 days isn't functional, but we haven't received a reply yet. The investments, well, the cheapest investment arguably is real estate because you're looking at an additional 1.5 million on top of the 2 million, assuming that the investment is in residential real estate and residential real estate only. The argument here being, if you're going to buy only residential real estate, then why buy an additional 500,000 home? It's not needed. You've already got 2 million in residential real estate. There is, there's various examples as to how you can do this. Certainly you can buy a villa for 2 million euros. You can sell it and buy something for 500,000, but in 3 years. But when you look at the 5-day restriction timeline that I just discussed, you're looking at brokerage fees and tax implications and all the rest of the stuff. Certainly my advice hasn't been to clients, if the point is to exit the 1.5 million in 3 years, then I wouldn't structure one villa. I'd structure smaller properties that can sell. The property market, my colleagues, because there are various developers here that, and I believe one is speaking shortly after I am, we'll let them discuss the property market and statistics, but it's been a strong market. It's been resilient. It's the rental market has been impressive. We've got clients that are buying residential real estate and then entering into high quality lease agreements. We've had entire buildings that have been rented out by large oil services companies. The oil companies, oil and gas companies are starting to set up now in Cyprus, and they're driving demand for much of the residential real estate. Option number 2, 1.5 million was option number 1 in residential real estate. Option number 2 is a mixed investment. There are many things that you can invest in, including government bonds, mixed real estate, commercial, infrastructure projects, land. It is very, very important to note here that the government has been issuing approval letters for this program with conditions. And these conditions apply to individuals that have acquired the citizenship through an investment that is still under development, being a property, being a house that is yet to be built, something that is off plan, or a piece of land that was acquired with a development plan. The government will hold the applicants accountable for seeing through with the development projects and plans that are submitted with the application. And there will be challenges. If people are buying things off plan with the hope that they're going to sell them back to the developer before the project is submitted, then they're going to have some issues. Same thing applies with land. We had a client that purchased a piece of land for 4 million euros as part of 2 applications, and We have a requirement now from the ministry to update them on what the development was. And the sad part is the client hasn't done anything with it in 6 months, and we're in a little bit of a scramble mode now, trying to move the development along and satisfy the requirements. Participation in company shares. I'll skip this one because it's quite uncommon. The main requirement here being 5 EU or Cypriot national employees. This is the timeline. So we were lucky enough, fortunate enough to be engaged a couple of days ago by a client going through this program who was in Cyprus with me a few days ago, selecting his property. We signed the engagement letter a couple of days ago. We're now drafting the property purchase agreements, conducting our due diligence, and helping the client gather and legalize the documents. This process of finalizing, gathering, legalizing documents, and completing due diligence and property purchase agreements will typically take 2 to 3 weeks. Our team is working simultaneously on all these things with our client to prepare the application for submission by the end of the 4th week. From the day the application is submitted, we, of course, submit it to the Ministry of Interior. We obtain a receipt, and we have the client visit Cyprus with his or her family to submit the biometrics and apply for the residency permit. When all of that is done, we're at the mercy of the Ministry of Interior, and there's a process that the application goes through, 5 or 6 weeks, roughly, of police clearances, anti-money laundering, tax evasion reviews, and background checks before the file is submitted to the Ministry of Finance, where it undergoes scrutiny on the investment side. All in all, this process will take about 3 months. Sometimes we're at 3.5 months, sometimes we're at 2.5 months, but we say on average about 3 months to obtain a letter from the ministry that says your application has been approved. And 6 months from the date of your residency permit, you may go to the migration office and pick up your passports. And once we've got the letter with the dates, a couple of days to print the naturalization certificates. Unlike the biometrics for the residency permits, the biometrics for the passports can be done at many different embassies, Cypriot embassies throughout the world. London, certainly. Moscow, there's an embassy with biometric equipment for the passport, so clients do not need to visit again if they do not wish to come. That's all we'll cover in terms of the program itself. I'll speak a little bit about Cyprus. And I'll say that it is strategically located. You see this when you're traveling. Certainly, I spend a bit of my time in North America, and I'm back and forth between Canada. Many of you can see my accent is not a Cypriot accent. And I come and go, and I'll tell you, when you're in Cyprus, you feel strategically located. When you're in Toronto, California, you're not strategically located. It takes forever to get everywhere. In Cyprus, you've got access to Asia, you've got access to Europe, you've got access to the Middle East, with great direct flights to key hubs in the region, making getting to the island very easy. While the official languages are Greek and Turkish, I don't know many people that aren't have wonderful command of the English language. In fact, it's probably the most educated society that I've been part of in traveling the world. And that goes back to the culture that we discussed earlier. Education and healthcare we discussed. It is also an island that, while we say it's an island, we have to distinguish what Cyprus is relative to some of these other programs. Even a place like Malta, which is an EU member state, but is 1/30th the size of Cyprus, it's a big place, There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of industry. There's a financial services industry. There is a very large shipping industry. There's tourism that is just thriving, and I mean record numbers, year after year. And the instability in the region and some of the other places have increased the demand for tourism in Cyprus. Those have kind of been the historic industries, and now, everywhere you look, there seems to be oil and gas. You look out into the sea and you're seeing rigs, you're seeing equipment, you're seeing the biggest oil and gas companies in the world, Noble and ExxonMobil, Total, the biggest companies in the world are setting up shop in Cyprus, and it's all in anticipation of the oil and gas, natural gas production that will begin no later than 2020. The exploration is well underway. The findings are very impressive and very notable. And we believe that over the next 3 to 4 years, the Cypriot economy will transition and we will become an oil and gas-based economy. I think it's important to talk about all these things because many of these programs, especially in some of the Caribbean countries, many of the programs create a lifeline for the economy of the country. In Cyprus, is not the case. The impacts of this program, while have been significant, it's helped recapitalize the country. 4.5 to 5 billion euros of investment that's come in. Yet the impact to the economy is not as significant as you would think. There have been some pockets that have benefited from the citizenship program. Certainly the property market in some areas, but this isn't a program that, if ended tomorrow, would have a significant impact on the Cypriot economy as a whole. There's a lot of other things going on. A couple of little stats there on the bottom, but we don't need to touch on them. It's a beautiful place, beautiful weather, friendly people. So there's no surprise that it's highly ranked in terms of relocation destinations and also best countries for business. This is a picture of myself and my partner who's here as well. We run the day-to-day operation. I spend the majority of my time on the road. 15 days a month I have to be in Cyprus for meeting clients and for other reasons, but the rest of the time I'm usually at events. I'm not sure if any of you are traveling from here to Abu Dhabi, but if you are, we'll be heading down there together. That's all I wanted to say as part of my presentation. Feel free to ask questions, and if you don't want to do it here in this setting, I'll be at our stand, which is near the front entrance. Should be here for the next few hours, and please come by. Pick up a card, and if there's additional information required, we can do it through email or by telephone as well. Okay? Thank you.
No questions? Okay, we have one question. Yeah.
Yes, I see a huge number of students from around the world coming to Cyprus now.
Yes.
Is there a pathway to citizenship as well through a study permit?
Well, yes, there would be. Certainly, once you're established there, there are a number of different immigration programs that have been in existence for years, non-investment based. So the answer is yes. Obtaining the student visa, coming there and becoming a resident begins the process. Certainly, and from there you're looking at the traditional period, meaning you need residency in Cyprus for a period of 6 years, and then applying through the normal channels, but not through the investment side. And it's actually got wonderful universities. The University of Cyprus is expanding. I was on site the other day looking at a student housing accommodation, and it's amazing what they're doing. There's cranes everywhere, buildings going up, and they've got a shortage of thousands of units now too for accommodating the students. So that industry, I think, is going to be one that's going to really see growth the next little while. Certainly, if you want to pick up a card or exchange information, I can send you some info on the program for the students? Yeah? Excellent.
Okay, no more questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.